5.
Curry hits a three.
4.
Just for the drive. Deep left field.
3.
Patrick hit by Watt. Shaq number 10.
2.
Messi with a record-breaking goal.
1.
Welcome to BSS Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Steve and Trevor.
Good Monday afternoon. It is September 19th, 2016. I'm Steve. That's Trevor. Hi, Trevor.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fantastic.
You're never not fantastic. Anyway, in the sporting world, Canada opens up the World Cup of Hockey, dropping the Czech Republic by a swifty 6-0.
6-0? Come on, this isn't soccer, Steven. It's the World Cup, but it's not soccer.
Fair enough.
Well, yeah, I mean, Canada just kind of outclassed the competition, it seemed like. And the Czech Republic and the pre-tournament stuff was actually, it was interesting because they were fantastic. And we're not used to saying that about the Czech Republic, I feel like, when it comes to hockey a lot of the time. Like, they're just kind of there. But Canada kind of put them in their place a little bit in that game, and Carey Price was fantastic when he needed to be, obviously. And, I mean, when you look at the roster of what Canada has, it's a phenomenal team, and it's better than the Czech Republic. I don't know if it's 6-0 better than the Czech Republic. They were firing on all cylinders, it seemed like, and that's with missing a guy like Tyler Seguin.
Do you find that there was anybody that you felt was out of place with this team?
Not really. And I mean, when we mention injuries as well, Duncan Keith is a big loss on the back end for this team as well, and they're able to survive the way they did. That's the thing, though, with Canada. I mean, there's guys that didn't make this team that would fit right in, like a Taylor Hall, I feel like would kind of fit right in. And there's other guys, obviously, as well that I'm kind of forgetting. Even a Marc-Andre Fleury is like a goaltender. So, I mean, there's a bunch of guys that aren't on this team that would fit right in. So, I mean, I feel like whenever you make a Team Canada, everybody's going to fit in.
So there was a lot of talk about the whole PK Subban thing, but you think that's fine? You're glad they didn't put him on the team?
I don't mind it. PK's a weapon that you can definitely have. He's a heck of a shot. He's a big hitter. He can skate. But like I said, I mean, there's a bunch of guys that probably could have been on this team that aren't, and that speaks to like how good this team actually is. It's kind of actually funny. I feel like a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans are the ones that are angry about the PK Subban thing, yet the guy they got in return for PK Subban, Shea Weber, is on this team. So I find that a little ironic. But, I mean, they have a fantastic blue line.
So first time seeing Carey Price back. What do you think?
Well, he didn't allow a goal, so that was a good start. But, and I mean, whenever you're playing in front of a defense like that, I mean, Carey Price has allowed like one goal in like the last 15 periods that he's played with Team Canada. And that's almost to be expected because Carey Price is an elite goaltender, and the blue line in front of him is pretty elite as well. I mean, it's obviously better than any kind of blue line that you could see. I mean, we had a chance during the broadcast to see the salary cap that Canada is, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But it's above the salary cap in the NHL. So obviously there's a lot of stars on this team, and that's the case on the blue line. And I feel like any goaltender, definitely at the level of a Carey Price, should be able to be phenomenal when you have that kind of blue line in front of you helping you out. And even the forwards and centermen as well on the team.
Now, we kind of assumed that Canada was going to, kick off this tournament with a bang. But the U.S., they started off the tournament against Europe. And Europe not necessarily was deemed a weaker team, but they kind of were at the same time, but the USA lost to them. And was that shocking to you at all?
I don't really know if we can call Europe the weaker team because what they are is they're a bunch of fantastic players that would be on weaker teams if they were playing internationally. Anze Kopitar obviously is like the top example of an elite player in the NHL that would be playing for Slovenia if he were playing for his national team. Which he had the chance to in the Olympics before, and we saw how that went. There's a lot of great players on this European team. Do I rank it up there? I mean, like, when we think of the Americans going into this, we think of them right up there with Sweden. We think of them right up there with Canada and a lot of the other, teams that are representing the one country. Europe went out there and just kind of, if there's a weakness with Europe, it's their goaltending that I'm kind of, on edge about. With Frederik Andersen being hurt, they have to rely on Jaroslav Halak a lot, with Greiss being the backup. Halak's a tough guy to rely on, but Europe did fantastic. And the thing now for the Americans is I think it's 3 preliminary round games for each team. So they've lost their first one. They have 2 left, one of which is against Canada. And John Tortorella has already said, he's the coach of that American team, he already said that their big game, their championship game at this point is that game against Canada.
Now, switching over to football. And only going to talk about this for a minute, and it's the Patriots. For whatever reason, I know we're in somewhat close proximity to Boston, So a lot of Canadians, at least that I'm aware of, seem to be Patriots fans. Now, this whole Tom Brady thing, still suspended. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in to replace him. 18 of 27 passing with 3 touchdowns yesterday. And now that was before his injury. Yes, something bad happened to the Patriots again, but let me bet that it's probably not going to end up being that bad in the end. So he gets a shoulder injury. Jacoby Brissett, the rookie. Nobody knows who the heck is the third-string quarterback of the Patriots. Everybody knows who's the backup for Tom Brady, but nobody knows who the third string is. So Garoppolo's out. Jacoby Brissett, rookie, in. That's all I got to say. Just keep an eye on the Patriots, because this story just keeps unfolding, and they keep winning, and it's kind of frustrating. I'm not going to lie. Trevor, are you a Patriots fan, by the way? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
I remember rooting for them to go undefeated that one season, but apart from that, I mean, no. I've been a casual NFL fan for a long time, but I mean, the Patriots are kind of that evil empire of the National Football League, I feel like, and there's a lot of that success related. I mean, they are the Yankees of the NFL. I would say the Maple Leafs. That's probably more like what the Cowboys are, the equivalent to the Maple Leafs. I mean, they are the Yankees of the NFL, and they're a team that's really easy to dislike, I find.
So talking about the Yankees, the Patriots, it's all kind of like a theme. They're the empire. They're the top dogs, per se. And in the English Premier League, you could argue, not saying this is right, I don't agree with it at all, but Manchester United could be the top dog in the English Premier League. Now they're on a 3-game losing streak, and that's after last year they, got rid of Van Gaal and decided to pick up Jose Mourinho. Now they're losing 3 in a row after spending a ridiculous amount and buying a player who is now considered the most expensive player in history, Paul Pogba, and they're losing. If you take the best players in the world and you put them on the same team, do you think that you are supposed to always come out with a victory when you do that? Because Manchester United, for the most part, has a pretty solid team. You could argue one of the top 5, maybe 10 managers in the world in soccer, one of the best strikers in Zlatan Ibrahimovic, the best player, arguably, based on the fact that he's the most expensive, apart from Messi and Neymar and Ronaldo, and Paul Pogba. What's your thoughts on all these teams, especially in soccer, spending ridiculous amounts of monies on, like, a single player?
When I think, when you think about the super team thing, the sport, you think where it would be more successful is baseball, but because you play 162 games, that's difficult. But I think it's baseball because obviously you don't have to share a ball or anything like that, like you'd have to do in soccer and basketball, where we've seen the success of super teams forking out a lot of money for one player. If you can do it, obviously go ahead and do it. In certain sports you can't, like in basketball we've seen it to an extent, but there's still a salary cap. In hockey you can't. But in baseball, we've seen it a lot where what the Red Sox have done with David Price, and they may win the division now. They're really close at this point. So, I mean, there's instances where it definitely can work, and there's instances where it can backfire. The way I look at it is if you're a general manager that's running a team and it's your decision, just make sure the contract's long enough that by the time that contract's up or that you're regretting that contract, that you're no longer the GM, you've been fired.
Now, I want to go back to the NFL topic just for a minute because I forgot about this. Twitter decided that they were going to do this interesting thing, I guess, partnership with the NFL, and stream a game, the Thursday night game, the New York Jets versus the Buffalo Bills on Twitter, having the full screen, and then on the right you have tweets, live tweets, hashtags, ats, whatever you want to say on the side. And it's kind of recreating a very specific branding and ad-focused platform for them that's something different than cable. Do you think that we're going to eventually destroy cable and do everything online? Because personally, I love watching things on a TV because I'm blind, so I like having the bigger picture. But with all this going on, it seems that like streaming, whether it be free or paid, seems to be the absolute spotlight. And with that, kind of revolving around like bars and stuff, because, for certain students and stuff like myself, the only way that I can go and watch a game right now is if I go to a place that's having the game. But instead, if I'm like, hey, I can just watch it at home, that could, harm that business.
Well, legal streams that are happening online in high quality, that kind of thing's probably not going to stick around because you're not really generating any revenue. It's an interesting thing to try out, and definitely if you were to do it in the NFL, it would be the Thursday night game that you'd want to give away for free. But I mean, yeah, we've had this debate before, obviously, where you could pay to like have something streamed, or you can pay for cable. For my example, residence here at the college, I have cable, yet I have a roommate that is paid for the NHL Game Center package. Why? Because you can get all those games, which, it's more games than I can get with the cable. But with the cable, obviously, I get a bigger variety of what I want to watch, not necessarily just sports. So, I mean, obviously, I find there's always going to be a place for cable, but you can also make the argument with regular shows with Netflix. That's kind of the same thing. What's going on there? And finding other ways to watch them online. Obviously, illegal streaming is something that's out there, and that's going to be something that's going to be tough to nip in the butt. But that's something that doesn't necessarily help when it comes to the whole cable thing. But when it comes to like cable, I mean, I'm kind of like all bought in with sticking with cable, and but I mean, it depends, right? Because it's like if you want a good variety of each sport, then I feel like cable's the best route to go. Otherwise, you're paying for, you got your NHL Game Center, you got the MLB, whatever it's called, you got the NFL, the NBA, and I feel like that's really going to add up in the end. Not that I've done the math. So I feel like cable's, still there as long as we have, 24-hour news and stuff like that. And I like my 24-hour, sports stuff. That's still going to be a thing. But I mean, as long as like we have Netflix on the rise and the sports streaming things on the rise for each league, it's going to be more and more difficult. So, but I mean, I'm on the side of cable for now.
You're listening to BSS Sports, a sports radio show by Steven Schill and Trevor Struthers on Alternative Radio 91X. Now, the last two topics I want to bring up is one's revolving around the NBA, and secondly, about the Blue Jays. With the NBA, there seems to be a lot of players that are going to different teams, so it's going to be real confusing and real weird to see all these players on different teams. But specifically with the Golden State Warriors, they had Kevin Durant throw out the first pitch at the San Francisco Giants game. How do you think he's going to do with Golden State?
I mean, it goes back to that super team thing that we were talking about a little bit earlier, and throwing money at a guy to bring him in when you have a bunch of already developed superstars. It'll be interesting because it's not like Golden State was the team that was struggling to find itself. They've been to the finals the last 2 years, and obviously they're going to have that expectation again this year. Which you could say they had that expectation last year as well, and they delivered to a point where they got to Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Now it's expected for them to go out and win a championship, and sharing the basketball is going to be something that I feel like a lot of people are intrigued to see how that's going to go. You got a lot of shooters now on this team. What was it, like 3 of the starting 5 are guys that really like to shoot the ball and are really good at it, but it's all about, deciding who's going to shoot what and what opportunities, and managing egos. And I don't feel like, I feel like for the most part, they've managed their egos well. If you ask me, which big 3, so to speak, had the bigger egos, and the big 3 I'm considering with the Warriors being Durant, Curry, and Thompson, I would consider them to have the lesser ego than Miami's big 3. So that might work out.
Now, finally, in 30 seconds, will the Blue Jays make the playoffs this year? Yes or no, and why?
It's really tough to call at this point, but I think they'll find a way to at least get a wild card spot. They're only a few games out of first place in the division, but that's also like the distance that they are away from being out of a playoff spot. So literally, I think at this point it could go either way, for where they could finish up. But I have enough confidence in the Blue Jays with the way their pitching's gone, and with the talent that we know the hitters have, that the Blue Jays will be able to sneak into at least a wild card spot.
That's it for this edition of BSS Sports. My name is Steven Schill. That is Trevor Struthers. Make sure to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at BSS Sports. And of course, you're listening to Alternative Radio 90.